I am Tiara Tripuriana from English Education 2017. I will explain about the poetry. So, please attention. Poetry. Poetry, literature that evokes a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response. Through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sound, and rhythm. Poetry is a type of literature based on the interplay of words and rhythm. It often employs rhyme and meter, a set of rules governing the number and arrangement of syllables in each line. In poetry, words are strung together to form sounds, images, and ideas that may be too complex or abstract to describe directly. Characteristic of poetry. The first, figures of speech or figurative language are ways of describing or explaining things in a non-literal or non-traditional way. For example, a metaphor describes something by likening it to something else. His touch was a lightning strike. The author doesn't mean that the touch was literally a lightning strike, but rather that it produced feeling of heightened excitement and charged emissions. Second, descriptive imagery. Imagery is something concrete, like a sight, smell, or taste. Imagery describes what the poet sees, hears, or otherwise senses, be it a literal image or one that exists in his mind. Third, punctuation and format. The punctuation and format of the poetry deal with how it is arranged on the page and how the author intends for you to read it. For example, if a poem has frequent line breaks and short stanzas, it forces you to read in a different rhythm than if it were arranged in longer stanzas with fewer breaks. To better understand this concept, read poetry aloud instead of in your head. When you read poetry or listen to the poet read his own work, you see the impact of the format. 4. Sound and tone. Poets use different sounds and tones throughout poetry to change the way it sounds. For example, the poet may use alliteration, which is when multiple consecutive words start with the same letter. For example, he may write, "Pretty Puck's playful friends on the promenade." The poet may choose his letters to give the poem a soft or safe sound as well. For example, choosing words that use soft consonants like F, M, and Y produces a different sound than words with hard consonants like D, K, T, and Z. 5. Choose of measure. The measure of poem is the rhythm or pattern of speech with which you read it, and it doesn't happen by accident. Poets use different methods to give their poetry different rhythms, which have technical names like iambic, pentameter, or spondic heptameter. These names function like measurement for poetry. A poem's rhythm and meter can be broken down and analyzed according to measurement like this. And then in here have the five most important elements of poetry. The first, imagery. The only thing that will make your poetry powerful and inciting is a great imagery. This goes along with the line you always hear, show don't tell. Only with poetry it's all show and no tell. For the love of God, don't just say that love hurts. Give us a metaphor, show us a weapon, maybe draw some blood, make it avail to the five senses. Second, rhythm. Yes, rhythm can include rhyme. No, it doesn't have to. It's not even recommended in a fake. The farther away you can get from Dr. Seuss, the better, of course. Not all poems that you rhyme are obnoxious, but I think you can use fair judgment here. There are another ways to make a poem rhythmic without a rhyme. Stringing words with similar sounds together in a line works very well. Next, 3. Sound. The rhythm of a poem goes along with the general sounds of it as well as the making it easier to remember. There are two sounds better to know here. One is soft and harmonious. I like to think of it like the sound of angels humming. It is euphony. 4. Density. Density is what sets poetry apart from prose. Normal speech patterns are the way fiction and non-fiction books are written. Density is how much is said in how little of speech. The ability to use metaphors not conform to traditional grammar style and incorporate sounds and rhythms is unique to poetry. All of these allow for greater density. 5. Line. In traditional poetry, you are a prisoner to line. The line owns you, telling you 4 line 3, 5 3, then 4 again. So as a put in the hipster age, of course, you don't want to conform. Unless you are so against the rain that you actually want to write traditional poetry. But whatever the case may be, the line is a very important part of poetry. And I think that's another thing that makes it unique to prose. In a prose, you can format the lines however you want and it has no impact on the writing. However, in a poetry, that's not the case. Next, types of poetry. The first poetry is the Hackney period art form, including everything from silly. Second, limericks to Homeric epics. Some common poetic styles and forms include 3. Acrostics, poems in which the first letter of each line spell a word. 4. Haikus, a Japanese poetic style comprising 3 lines and 70 syllables. 5. Lyric poetry, poems that express emotion or feelings. 6. Sonnets, poems with 40 lines that follow one of several rhyme schemes. 7. Shape poems, poems where the words on the page create an image. Tips on writing poetry. 1. Focus on the title things. It can be tempting to make every poem about big subjects such as love or suffering, but some of the most effective poetry is about everyday things. Second, it doesn't have to rhyme. Rhyme may be one of the first things you think of when you hear the word poetry. But poems don't have to rhyme, and relying too heavily on rhyme can make a poetry seem simplistic. And the next is avoid cliches like rhyme, metaphors, smiley, and other literary devices are common in poetry, offering ways to make your language expressive and looking at how people have used them can be a great source of information. And then 4. Read your poetry out loud. Not all poetry is meant to be read out loud, but it can be a great way to get a different perspective on the work in the progress. See how it sounds when you read it and whether that gives you any new ideas. And then in here it's have an example of the poetry. I will tell you. The heroes of education, our word that formerly empty, our word that used to the dark full of misery, never touched by light directly, empty, dark, and lonely. We cannot be anything, unfortunately. We cannot go somewhere painfully, since you come that day. Our world turned to be full of color. Our world that used to empty, violet with red line, word and image. We who previously not there just only to dreams. Now we begin to have dreams because you taught us about the beautiful color thanks to heroes of education. Okay, it is an example of the heroes of education. Thank you for attention. See you next video, guys.